Peas are a cool weather crop. It's late October and most of our hot weather is behind us now. Now is when we in southern, milder winter zones think about planting peas. Now, if you live in a cold winter climate, then you'll probably start thinking about this in late winter or early spring. But you can brush up on these tips now and be ready when the time comes. Peas can actually take a bit of frost and can be planted in late winter or early spring, about a month before your last frost date. If you've never grown peas before or never tasted them right out of the garden, let me know that in the comments. I think peas have to be in my top 5 of things to grow, right up there for sure with tomatoes in terms of store-bought taste versus homegrown taste. And I would venture to say if you haven't grown your own peas before, you've probably never had a freshly shelled pea. I know I hadn't. And if you've had and don't like canned peas or frozen peas, they may as well be a completely different vegetable, so you're going to be in for a really nice surprise. There are 3 types of peas you can grow: snow peas, snap peas, and shelling peas. Now, shelling peas are the type of pea where you eat the inside peas, not the outer. You shell that off. So most of the pale grayish green things that are frozen or canned at the store are shelling peas. That doesn't mean they taste the same. But shelling peas, you eat the peas inside and not the outside. Snow peas, the snow pea pod is edible, and they're picked just as the tiny peas inside are barely showing through the shell. There's little bumps there. And then snap peas are a cross between shelling peas and snow peas. They actually have a great snap that you can hear when you snap them in half. The pods are edible, but they can be a bit fibrous sometimes. All right, let's get to sowing the seeds. I'm going to talk a little bit about how I'm going to do this. I'm going to put them in the bed that housed the squash, the climbing squash, the cucumbers, things like that. And the reason I'm doing that is I've already got a trellis built right in, and I've already got the strings and the hooks that I use for those and that I also use for tomatoes already up there. They're already ready to go. So I took all the squash out, I've prepared the ground. I did this I showed you how to do this on a couple of videos back, so I'll put a link to that video down below. And the soil is now ready to plant in. Now I'm going to be succession sowing my peas, which means I'm going to sow this back row here because the sun travels across that way, so it's facing this way. So I don't want to plant on that side of the bed first because that will shade the ones that are going to be behind it. But the front ones will be between the sun and the back row. So I'm going to plant the back row. I'm going to plant 3 rows of peas in this bed. So this back row I'm going to plant first, and then in 2 or 3 weeks I'm going to plant a second row, which would be the center row, and then 2 to 3 weeks after that I'm going to plant the front row. Right now I've got basil in here. It's starting to bloom. I've harvested so much from this basil. I'm going to go ahead and let it go to flower because the bees love it. It's going to give them a lot of pre-winter food to eat and to use as to store for honey. And so by the time I'm probably ready to plant the second row in 2 or 3 weeks, these are going to be gone and this whole bed will be empty. So right now I'm going to take advantage of the space I've got in the back row and get going on that. And the best way to sow peas is directly in the ground. And the best place is full sun to part shade. Now, peas don't need 8 hours of sun, and they probably can get by on 6, probably even better than 8. They like it cool, and some extra shade provides that as the weather starts to warm up in the spring. If they get too hot, the bottoms of the plants turn brown and crispy, which inhibits water from being drawn out of the soil and up to the top of the plant. And so the whole thing will get diseased and die. The second thing you need to focus on is fertilizing. And peas are gluttons when it comes to fertilizing, and they love nitrogen. Once the peas are up and growing, they're going to start to produce their own or pull nitrogen out of the air and fix it in their roots, and they'll be able to live on some of that as well. But they are heavy feeders. Now, I mentioned that it's best to grow peas from seed. You can grow from transplants, but you need so many plants to get a really good harvest that it would really be a lot more cost effective to plant from seed, and they're really easy to grow from seed. The seeds are actually really big, so they're a really good crop to plant with kids. And you want to sow the seeds close together. I place 2 every inch or so along a row, and then I put the rows maybe a foot apart. And I just set them down on top of the soil so I can see where they are, and then I'll go back and push them into the soil about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch deep, cover them with soil, and water them. Like I said, peas are really greedy, and if you want them to keep producing, you have to keep picking them, but you also want to keep that fertilizer going. So every couple of weeks, give it a good balanced organic fertilizer, and they're going to give you such a bigger harvest. A question I've gotten quite often is if I inoculate my pea seeds, or any legume seed for that matter. And that just means putting some fungi, like a mycorrhizal type of fungi, onto the seeds or bury them with the seeds. And I don't do that. I have done it both ways, and I've never noticed a difference that I could tell. Let me know if you inoculate your seeds and if you've noticed a difference and if you think it's worth it or not. I just don't do it because it's an extra step, it's an extra cost, and again, I didn't notice much of a difference. So from the sowing day up until the peas are about a foot tall, peas need protection from the birds. And so I'm going to be using my new best friend tool. And you can get this at any fabric store. I got mine at Walmart, and I got black to kind of have it disappear into the garden. They use white for wedding dresses, I guess. You can also cover them with floating row covers or fleece. One more thing, peas are vining plants, so they're gonna need something to climb on. Now, if you plant them in groupings, you can have them grow up a bamboo teepee. If you plant them in a row, like me, you're gonna need to provide a trellis that's about 4 to 6 feet tall, depending on the variety of pea you have, because they need something to climb on. A cattle panel is an easy solution, zip tied to a couple of T-posts driven into the ground. For shorter varieties, you can use sticks cut from other plants that have a lot of branching, not just one like little bamboo stick, but a branch that has some side branches to it that the peas can grab onto. For the tall ones, in a row, posts with string across, like a ladder, works. Before we moved, I grew mine on my tomato trellis, since peas grow in the opposite season of tomatoes. I took bamboo canes and I leaned them up against the trellis every foot or so on both sides, and the peas covered the entire thing by May. So I'm going to do the same thing this year with a bit of a difference. I don't have bamboo canes right now, but I still have the hooks and strings the tomatoes and cucumbers grew on, and I'm going to bring the strings down to the ground, secure them with a landscape staple, and let them climb up. So in the beginning, they'll kind of be searching for the strings a little bit. But then they're going to grab onto the strings, the ones between the strings will grab onto those, and they're just going to kind of cover the entire thing. So you don't have to have one string per pea. That'd be a lot of strings. So that's pretty much it. Keep them well watered when it's not raining. Peas love moisture. Continue to fertilize them throughout the season, and in a couple of months, you're going to have really green, lush plants with tons of beautiful pea flowers and really great, crisp, sweet peas that you can eat right in the garden or take in the house and cook. And you can even eat the pea shoots. The little ends that are growing, they contain the flower buds and maybe a tendril or two, a couple of leaves. You can snap those off and mix them into salads. You can stir fry them, and they're sweet just like the peas. Which is a tip for some of you in colder climates. You might not get to the pea stage, but you can certainly get to, by planting now, you could certainly get to the pea shoot stage. So thanks a lot, guys, for watching. I hope you learned something. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up, consider subscribing, share it with a friend, and we'll see you on the next video.